So jumping in here, Carmen is in my top two favorite operas to share with students. Carmen and Porgy and Bess are my big two. I find that in both cases, students readily engage with the material, with the music, with the costuming, with the content. And I've been teaching Carmen all week this week in preparation just to see what kind of feedback my kids could give me. So often, you plan a lesson plan and then it doesn't go the way you want it to, or things shift a little bit. So I've tried all this stuff this week and my kids really had some great ideas. So I'm going to share some of those things with you. But I think overall, you're going to find this is an incredible jumping off point, especially if you've never taught opera before or never taken students to see the opera before. You are in the right place with our friend Carmen. So I've got three different styles of introducing Carmen to you. Quick and easy. These are the activities that cost you nothing. They are plug and play. They don't take much time out of your lesson if you're in a season of preparedness for a contest or for a performance or for testing or something. These things are really, really easy. They can take as little or as much time as you want. I've got some deeper diving that we can do here, tying the opera to rep specific in your classroom or to your specific students. And then finally, some options that are completely student driven, stuff they can do on their own that they can then bring back to the classroom and talk about. But first, I've got to share with you one of the two speedy synopses that I found on the beautiful YouTube. So let's enjoy this one really quickly.
It's Spain and it's hot. So is Carmen, a massive flirt. Carmen tries her luck with soldier Jose. He's having none of it. Suddenly, a fight of Tarantino proportions breaks out. And Carmen's to blame. Thanks to Jose, she escapes arrest. Drink time in the local boozer. Carmen fires up the flirting and Jose is sold. Jose's boss isn't a happy bunny. Naughty Jose is late for work. Mood kill. Boss insults Carmen. Jose bashes his boss up, gets sent to the slammer. 1 month later, Jose's out, but Carmen's with Matador Man. Carmen is my bird. Whatever. My sword is bigger. Fisticuffs, Matador Man stabs ball. Jose kills Carmen. Dark.
So I've been sharing that with kids as a jumping off point all week. There are so many different avenues with which you can approach this work, but because the music is so familiar to us and because the plot is so thrilling, I find these little speedy synopses go hard, as the students say. So that one's about 42 seconds. We watch it and then I say, tell me about Carmen. Who is she? What do you know about her? Is she attractive? What are her goals? Who's Don Jose? Tell me about him, etc. I've included in this PowerPoint also another version of a speedy synopsis, which I will not show you right now. Opera in brief. I've shown these before to you all, but there are several different versions of the opera in brief videos, all around 3 minutes. And some of them are just the basics of opera. Some of them are specific to the shows, but they cost you just a couple of minutes in your class and are easy to enjoy and discuss. So I hope you'll make use of those. Let's take a look at a couple of the quick and easy activities, and we're going to start off with some Carmen bingo. So these bingo cards that I've made for you make use of elements that you're going to see in the broadcast, different arias in the show, as well as things you're going to see on the stage. Scenic elements, gestures, costuming pieces. We've got a whole bunch of plot events also included in there. So the white ones here that you see are for this production that we're about to see. So I studied footage from the production and just kind of notated some of the things that really stood out to me. A red convertible, a pair of turquoise cowboy boots, a tractor trailer. These are all things that you're going to see in the show. And this is a great conversation starter. So just by looking at these bingo cards, what do we see on here that is surprising to us? What are things that we did not expect to see on the stage at the Metropolitan Opera? An 18-wheeler? Yes, that is unusual. So this is a great place to kind of jump in before we look at any photos of the show, anything like that, and gives kids an idea of where to start. We also start familiarizing them with some of the important pieces of music that they're going to encounter. For example, the habanera, which we're going to talk a little bit about later on. I also made these for previous productions of Carmen, which are located in the Metropolitan Opera on demand, which you should all have access to. I love my Mood account. I use it all the time. And so these Carmen bingo cards would be, if you want to show the previous production of Carmen, previous productions, the kids can use the bingo cards and watch those, have an active watching experience with the bingo cards in the class while watching those. I like to always put a plug in for the Metropolitan Opera on demand as a great activity for you to leave for a substitute. All you leave is the login information, print out the bingo cards, boom, that's an entire class period's worth of material, and it costs you nothing. It's easy to argue with administrators that this is literacy because children are reading the subtitles on the screen, and that's an easy thing. I think most subs, hopefully, most subs can handle explaining a bingo card. So hopefully you'll make use of those. Let's take a look at another one of our quick and dirty activities here. In Act 1, Carmen gives Don Jose a flower, and that's it. He sings an aria about it in Act 2, an incredibly famous tenor aria. And so I've created a little activity for you here around that. I like to change things up in my classroom sometimes, and that includes having days of vocal silence for students and for myself. So what that means with the flower activity is this. The students arrive in the class and I tell them, today is a day of vocal silence. Today is a day of no cell phones, no engagement with technology, and no engagement with our voices at all. So I have a jail where they put their cell phones. I'm sure some of you do as well. And so the cell phones go into the jail. Then I pull up my Carmen Spotify playlist, which I have made publicly available to you here. You'll have to search for my Spotify name, Emily Sáenz there, Sáenz spelled incorrectly. I was trying to be cute. It's really not that cute. And the title of the playlist, Met Ed Carmen 2024. Then I tell the students, we are going to make paper flowers. I'm going to play a Spotify playlist for you of some really incredible recordings of some of my favorite singers singing the biggest arias in this opera, as well as some podcasts that are student-centered, student-appropriate that they can listen to. And then we sit in the quiet, make paper flowers together, and listen together. They don't have a whole lot of time throughout the day where they're sitting quietly, breathing with other people around them, not engaging with technology. I know that you already know this. And the benefits for their brains are through the roof for them to find time to disengage with their cell phone and to be silent and work alongside one another. So I'm happy to provide that in my classroom from time to time. On the right-hand side of the screen here, you'll see 4 different podcasts that I really, really enjoy that each have an episode about Carmen. And those are all included in this Spotify playlist for you as well. So in the playlist, you'll see different versions of the arias with some very famous singers, and then those podcasts. I'd like to particularly encourage you to listen to the Aria Code podcast on Carmen that just came out. It's really, really thoughtful, and I learned an awful lot there. So if you're interested in a day of silence with flower making, please do that. I've got the step-by-step making for you. The materials, all you need to make the paper flowers are just old paper, scissors, glue, and a pencil. So stuff you probably have lying around your classroom anyway. And we are always looking for ways to talk about reduce, reuse, recycle in our own lives. So we are making paper flowers out of music that we used last semester. Which is what we've got hanging around anyway. It's really neat because it's got the students' markings in the music, and now they get to make something beautiful from something beautiful, which I really, really like. I've got options for you of other different kinds of flower making, just if you're interested in that. And we just, to throw this out there, we're always looking for ways to earn money for our choir program. So we are making these flowers next week. We will be making them into bouquets. We're selling the bouquets for $5 a pop for students to buy for other students for Valentine's Day. So it becomes a fundraiser that ties into Carmen, that cost me nothing, that reuses materials I was just going to recycle anyway. There you go. Quick and easy. Let's take a look now at some media, a little palette cleanser. We're going to talk a lot about this later on, but there is a ton of media using music from Carmen that you can just throw into your class that the kids will enjoy. So I'm going to start off with this 2008 Dorito commercial. My kids really, really liked that one. They asked to watch it again. I've peppered these little commercials throughout the presentation, but I also have them loaded into a YouTube playlist that I'll share with you later on in case you want to show them in the classroom. That was 30 seconds of our lives, an easy conversation starter. What is it about the habanera in the background that adds an element of humor to the commercial? How does it tie to what we see going on with the gentleman in the chair? All kinds of ways that you can quickly discuss the music without belaboring the point. Let's take a look now at some of the activities that are a little bit of a deeper dive. I'm going to start with an ARIA analysis worksheet. Then we'll take a look at some of the MET education resources available to you. And then finally, my 4x4 SATB challenge, which I can't wait to share with you because it's really fun. So first, let's talk about the ARIA analysis worksheet. This is a really flexible activity. You can use it for any aria from any opera. I left it very, very vague. So if you find that your kids really like the activity, you can use it over and over and over again. You could also substitute the word aria for monologue and use the exact same worksheet in a theatrical setting or in an English classroom if you're studying some Shakespeare. This easily ties to students' own repertoire. So I like to use activities that we can use to look at the opera and then turn around and redo the same activity again, but this time looking at a piece of music that we are going to be singing. And this really easily ties to that. You can use audio or video with this activity, whatever you've got on hand. I like to change it up from time to time because I find that they listen differently if they don't have something to look at while they're listening. So here's the little worksheet. It's very, very simple here. Listen to the aria, and then we're going to talk about what's the title and where is it located in the show? What language is it in? Who's singing it? What's happening on stage? What is the fach of the person singing? You'll have to talk with them about that word because that's a funny one. What is the composer, date of composition, and the mood? Then on the back side of the worksheet is just an opportunity for a sound scribble. That's where they listen and scribble whatever they want. I always have colored pencils and highlighters available to kids, and so this is a great opportunity for them to show those. And then we'll do a little art show where we'll hang up the worksheets on the wall where we can see everybody's sound scribble for whichever aria. It works great. Then you can do the same thing for the rep you're working on. What is the song about? Right now, my treble choir is working on ist gekommen by Clara Schumann. So glad to hear a shout out for her tonight from Dr. Pottinger because she's the best. But we can use the same worksheet with a little tweaking to discuss that particular song that we're working on, and anything we can do to tie in and engage with opera and our music together will work really well together. Let's talk about the resources available to you on the MET website. I love the MET website, y'all. On the left here, you can see the PDF versions of the educator guides that are available to you. Those are in Spanish or in English. We also have the illustrated synopses that you see here on the right. That's a great way to engage with the plot. You get a quick little dive in there on the most important things that are happening in the show. I put these up on a Promethean board where everybody can really look at them together and we can talk about the different things that we see. really easy for kids to enjoy. Also in the resources department, you have some really great arrangements. On the left here, you see an SATB version of the habanera. These are arranged by our Met arranger, David O, who's really awesome. He does great stuff for us. I'm not going to lie that piece of music is incredibly difficult to sing. Those of you that teach music, just looking at it and seeing those 16th notes and triplets, and that'll keep you awake at night. So dive in here on that arrangement at your own risk. But if you're in the mood for a tough day, go for it. If you want to really push those babies. On the right-hand side, you will see a version of the habanera that's been boiled down. We took just the main, most important parts of the aria, put them in a singable key, which for us, F major is our best friend. These are easily playable. We've got them in F, G, D, and C major. These are all in the Met guide page for you with the arrangements so that you can use these for sight reading. So I have used this habanera for sight reading. I have used it for documenting staging. So we watch the aria over the top of the habanera greatest hits. We scribble down what she's doing staging wise as she reaches certain parts in the melody. We can use them for learning how to mark music. For example, if we see a tie or a slur, how are we going to address that? Where might we put a crescendo or a decrescendo in this piece here that we're looking at? So all different ways that you can address these Carmen's greatest hits, and they're meant to be really, really flexible. I'm going to tell you another way that we use the greatest hits here in just a minute. So those are all free and available to you at any time on the Met's website and under all of the education tabs. Let's watch another little clip. This is my number one fave. Please enjoy the Muppets.
More work, more work, more work, more work. More work, 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 more Here's habanero. You running Mac or PC?
After that, I'm running away.
Wait for me.
All right, that one went over really, really well with the kids too. I just thought that was really great. All right, now I want to dive into the 4x4 SATV challenge. This was something that my kids and I both, we really enjoyed this one. So a lot of times in opera, it's unusual for us to have major arias that represent the 4 major voice parts in a choir. But in this particular opera, we've got big numbers from all the voices. So this left us with an interesting opportunity to create a challenge. I always like to challenge my kids from section to section because a little healthy competition can sometimes make things really exciting. So the goal of the SATB challenge is that each group of children, each of the 4 groups of children, will be assigned an aria from Carmen. They will be given 20 minutes to collect as much information as they can, and then they will stand up in front of their peers. They will have 4 minutes to prove that their aria is the most difficult aria, technically, to perform in the opera. So we began with There we go. The four major arias representing the different voice types here in the opera. So we've got a soprano, Micaela, singing Jeudi. We have Carmen with the habanera. We've got Don José with La Fleur. And then we have Escamillo singing the Toreador song. Very exciting. So I assigned the sopranos, Jeudi, the altos, the habanera, etc., so that they were looking at something that was within their vocal range. Then they broke up into groups and watched the different arias on the Met Opera On Demand website. So if you head into the Carmen section of your Met Opera On Demand, you'll see that there are options for the 2010, 2014, and 2019 productions. There are also 13 audio recordings, just so you know. There's really an incredible amount of resources there. Let me see. So there's a lot of options there for you. The 2010, 2014, and 2019 options are all the same production, just starring different singers. So you can use, for example, the bingo cards that I made for the Metropolitan Opera On Demand website. You can use those for any of these three. You can also use any of these for the SATB challenge. My personal preference is the 2010. I love that version of the production. So that's the one I recommend. If you haven't seen this before, I would start with that. So we log in, the students get to take a look at the aria while they're in their groups. Here we've got I listed out for you on the left-hand side the names of the aria, the location within the opera, the full title of the aria, and then where it's located as far as the track list goes on Mood, so you don't have to scroll. So if you look at this picture here of Carmen, you can see on the right-hand side of her screen, there's the track list within Mood. So you can just click track list, scroll down to number 8, and hit play, and it'll go straight to her aria. Just helps with efficiency. So the kids broke up into their groups. They had 20 minutes. They watched the aria. They jotted things down about what they thought was difficult about the aria. I made these worksheets here, 4x4 SATB challenge worksheets with some prompts for them to discuss, because some of them weren't quite sure, especially the ones that weren't performers, what is so difficult about what we're watching. I did this challenge, by the way, with a musical theater class. So these are theater kids. So things they're looking for when they're watching. What's the vocal range? Are there any exciting or melismatic sections? How does the orchestra support the voice? What's this song about? Does the emotional content of the song affect the singing of the piece? Is there a lot of text? The habanera, for example, has tons and tons of verbiage, and it's strophic, so multiple verses. The words are different every time. That's extremely complicated to memorize, and so that's an element of difficulty that the kids would want to discuss as they're making their case for that aria being the most difficult. Who's on stage while they're singing? Is the singer talking to other people, or are they alone? Is the stage dim? Can they see the maestro in the pit? Can they see their own feet? Are they being asked to walk down a dark staircase while singing the aria? Are they on their knees? Are they laying on their stomach? Or in the case of Carmen singing the habanera, is she on her back with her arms up over her head and her legs up on a brick wall? These are all levels of complication that the students should be aware of and should take a look at. Finally, is there a lot of movement going on? Is she getting to stand still, or is she dancing while she's singing? And how does that affect the technicality, the technical performance of the aria? So once they've taken time to watch and kind of answer some of these prompts, then they get up in front of the group and present. And I read for them some of the interview the answers that I received from singers. So I interviewed different singers about what is so difficult about singing these particular arias. And they gave me some great little quips. For example, I heard from a mezzo soprano, it's really hard to stay in tune with the sliding half steps in the habanera. The phrases are really, really long, and you have to keep things slithery, kind of sexy, but not give too much away, and keep your air spinning all at the same time. These are things that kids might not have thought of on their own. So it's great to hear from a professional opera singer about what's so difficult, because then it kind of gives them a new way to look at it. So then they get up and present. You can see one of my fellas here presenting for the group. And then we do a good old fashioned elementary school style, put your heads down and let's vote situation to vote on which aria we think is the most difficult. For us, it came down to two of them. We had to have a runoff. The students insisted on being able to make further remarks. There was yelling. They were very, very engaged in how difficult things were. The altos were screaming at the tenors. It was a whole thing, y'all. So they got really, really excited about it. Finally, we ended on one winner. That was the tenor section. The tenors won, feeling like La Fleur was the most difficult aria in the opera. And they got to pick as their prize, they got to pick the section that had to sight read the Toreador from the Carmen's greatest hits. So what you see here on the page is the Toreador greatest hits bit, and the poor basses had to stand up and sight read it as their punishment for having a bad presentation. So we've learned four arias here. We're familiar with characters. We've made it personal. We've studied how the actors are moving on the stage. We've had some great conversations, and that's all it took. And we're ready for the opera. We're ready to go. You don't have to do anything more than that. One other thing I want to point out, so that activity, the SATB challenge, ties easily to other shows. We are preparing to do Footloose. We've just cast Footloose. And so we did the activity for Carmen and turned it right back around and did the same activity for Footloose. We chose 4 songs from Footloose, and then they had to prove which song was the most difficult to perform. The students were especially comparing the habanera to Holding Out for a Hero. I hope you know that one. I need a hero. She's famous. And we talked about, yes, thank you, Ray. We talked about what the kind of pressure a singer might feel to sing something on stage that the audience all knows. And that's the pressure that the mezzo-soprano feels singing the habanera at the opening. The audience is waiting for this, and it needs to be something special or they're going to have an opinion about it. How does that feel as an actor, as a singing actor? And we talked about that with Holding Out for a Hero. I also want to say, just as a side note, I'm always looking for opportunities to have important conversations with students that they need to have. And so we used the staging of the habanera as an opportunity to talk about consent in that particular opera, In the Mood. She takes a flower and runs it down the front of one of the guards while she's singing. It's a very, very provocative gesture. And so we began by talking about what that rehearsal process might have looked like. Would there have been a discussion between the two actors about a level of comfort with the director? How might that discussion have looked? How might the actor have expressed his discontent if he did not feel that that was an okay thing for her to run the flower down his chest? And then that opens the door for us to just make sure that we all know what consent looks like, which is a conversation that we need to have lots and lots and lots of times. So I like to tie those kind of things into the opera, and this is a real easy one. I'm going to skip ahead because we're already really at our time limit here, but I just want to show you there are over 70 different films of Carmen using the plot, not necessarily the music, but the plot of Carmen. These are movie posters from different Carmens from around the world. You can see You Carmen up here on the right-hand side. That's from South Africa. Carmen Baby in the middle. That's from Italy. We've got Carmen Jones as an Oscars and Hammerstein production. And then, of course, Beyonce's beautiful hip opera Carmen from 2001, which Ray and I discussed the other day, was a big deal to us as teenagers. It definitely was, thanks to MTV. So we like to look at these posters. We talk about the story. What do the posters have in common? What do we learn about Carmen just by looking at the different versions of her? And I love that we see all different versions of Carmen here, because as we say often in Met Ed, there is room for everyone in opera. And we can see that here. This is a beautiful illustration of that. You can search Met Ed Carmen 2024 on YouTube to find links to tons and tons of commercials that make use of Carmen, as well as the full-length productions for Carmen Jones, The Wild Wild Rose, which is from China, 1960. It's really interesting. You Carmen, again from South Africa, and the full-length Carmen hip opera is located on YouTube. Thanks, MTV, for that. So you can watch any of those online, and I'm using these as a reward for kids for the next 3 weeks. We have a great rehearsal. We push really hard. We'll end class with 10 minutes of Carmen hip opera. Easy little reward system. Well, thank you all for listening, and I hope that these resources are helpful to you, that you find a place for them in your classroom and they help get your kids excited.